maybe you have a poem that you think would sound great as a spoken word poem, or you have something that you would just like memorize, but the process seems daunting and you don't know where to start. Don't worry, I think this is something that anyone can learn how to do, so I've gathered some tips that I think might help start the ball rolling. Tip number 1 is to create a story. Fortunately, if you've already written your poem, you already have a story. Try picking specific and vivid images from that poem. By putting meaning to those words and distilling them into images, you're working on the scientific principle called semantic encoding. The more rich your images are, the more interesting they are, the more likely you are to remember them. One way you can use this tip is by creating a memory palace, which is something memory experts use by setting up a scene, real or imagined, and picking specific locations within that scene and setting very specific visuals to those places. So for example, if I wanted to use this room, I would pick the window that I have here. And if I wanted to remember the word egg, I would imagine an egg splattering on the window and frying in the sun. Tip number 2, try breaking it down. By splitting your poem up into different pieces, you are working with a memory technique called chunking. Since our short-term memory can really only recall about 4 pieces of information well at any given time, breaking it down into groups makes that whole process a lot easier. You see this done in phone numbers or credit cards, for instance. If your poem is already split up into stanzas, that is excellent. It's an excellent place to start. If not, just start by breaking it down every 4 lines. That way it makes it a little bit easier on your brain. Tip number 3, record. I can't tell you how many times I've been reluctant to put in the effort of recording, but each time I do, I improve dramatically. Hearing your recording back will help you identify areas in which you can improve. And listening to the emphasis and inflection in your voice in the recordings will help you memorize the sound of your recording. If you're inclined to film your performance, that's even better, because that way you get a look at what other people will be seeing. And finally, tip number 4, meaningful practice. We've all heard practice makes perfect, which is true, but meaningful practice is much more effective. It will take you further much faster. It will help enforce good habits. So try practicing the way you want the actual performance to be. Visualize the space, think of gestures you want to use, hand positions, postures, everything. Practice works on the scientific principle of recall. So by recalling and repeating information, you are strengthening nerve pathways in your brain. By taking breaks, you are strengthening these pathways even more. So by taking 15, 20 minutes apart from your practices is great. And sleeping on it is even better. Just to be clear, there are more tips and techniques you can use to help with your memorization on your spoken word poems. I've just included a few here that I found personally successful. If you do have any recommendations or questions, just feel free to leave them in the comments below. That way we can keep the conversation going. My name's Sarah. If you want to check out more of my videos, just subscribe.